We're looking right now at about a half dozen men carrying a wounded man prone, laying on his back, clearly wounded, down the street here. And I've probably seen at least 20 men being carried like this. And it's terrible. The man is bleeding from the head, and I imagine he's going to be carried perhaps to this makeshift clinic that my colleague Ben Wiedemann is at, which has seen far too much action, far too many wounded people, certainly on Friday and Saturday, when there were still deadly clashes going on involving the Interior Ministry and the anti-Mubarak demonstrators.
No, Ivan, I still can't get over the contrasting images that we've been watching just live on our screens. I don't know if you were able to see it just now, but on our screen, watching not only the injured, the wounded being taken away, chaos and pandemonium in another corner of Tahrir Square, but right there on our screen, prayer taking place, order, contemplation, reflection. It's extraordinary. Could you pull back a bit and tell us more about just how large the square is, how many people are there?
Well, this square, I'm not sure I could make a geographical comparison. It's the size of several football fields. Unfortunately, we're looking now again, Christy, at another wounded man being brought out, clearly in a semi-conscious state right now. There are thousands of people here. This is not the mass of humanity that we saw on Tuesday during what was described as the Million Man March. There's much more open space here. The tents that we saw erected here have been removed. This is territory that yesterday the demonstrators against President Hosni Mubarak, they were literally claiming this territory for themselves, saying that we will not leave until Hosni Mubarak steps down. And late Tuesday night, we heard boos and the chant of leave, leave Mubarak coming, moments after he said he would complete his term before elections that would probably take place in September. And now we see that these demonstrators are willing to put their lives on the line. They're willing to fight to protect this symbolic patch of territory in the center of Cairo from the pro-regime demonstrators who clearly tried to come in here. And I spoke with many of these pro-regime demonstrators this morning, and they insisted that they were the true Egyptians and that the people who had been in the center here were some kind of traitors that were betraying a heroic president, Hosni Mubarak, who they described as a war hero from the 1973 war against Israel. We're watching another terribly bloodied man who's being beaten by men as he's being carried back. Just scenes of vicious anger against a guy who's clearly suffering from a serious head wound. So there's, amid the scenes of prayer here, Christy, there are also scenes of blind rage and violence. And it just shows you how turbulent the situation is and how much this has thrown Egyptian society into confusion right now. I think a lot of Egyptians don't understand what's really happening in their country right now, Christy.
And as Egyptians who are not participating in these protests are watching these scenes unfold, are their feelings changing away from hope and optimism to fear about their country's future?
You know, as the pro-Mubarak demonstrations were organizing and as the streets were filling with those demonstrators chanting "Long live Mubarak" this morning, I overheard one man say, "Vive Mubarak" in French. He said, "Mubarak is a hero. He's a great man." And I said, "Well, does that mean you want that you were against the demonstrations that were calling for his resignation?" And the man said, "No. Those demonstrations were good. Those protests were good because it forced our president to say he was not going to run for office again, that he would prepare for a peaceful transition of power. But now it's time to stand up and defend him and bring life back to some form of normality." So you see how some Egyptians had